All right. So, welcome everybody. As I say, Cherie and Karen and Rachel and I here. Mark Bassett sends his apologies. All right. So, next slide. And I think there are sufficient quorum of us that people can talk rather than put it in the chat. So, just a brief introduction, I guess, of we know who you are. I guess maybe how long you've been a learning advisor and what sort of award you might be interested in applying for. And Quentin, we'll start with you, please.
Okay, I've been a learning advisor for 15 years at AUT, and I worked at 2 other universities in Hong Kong. So I'd probably go for the senior one.
Nice, cool. Karen.
Thanks, Deb. I've been a learning advisor at Whitireira Welltech for 15 years, and I'd probably go for the advanced one as well, I think.
Excellent. Cherie.
Kia ora. I think advanced, short and sweet. Yeah.
How long have you been a learning advisor?
Oh, sorry. I would say if I counted absolutely everything, about 25 years. Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, like there was a period of time where I was tutoring and providing learning advice as a graduate student, and I'm counting all of that because it all built towards me becoming like
Yes.
a career-focused learning advisor.
Yes. Nice. You.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, my mic's off now.
Oh, good.
Yeah, look, yeah, but 25 years at the AUT, and so I gather it's the first time I've ever applied for any accreditation, but I suppose I'd have to go for the senior one, I suppose.
Absolutely. Sounds great. Andrea.
Kia ora tātou. I have been a learning advisor for about 20 years, starting back in London, but the last 8 years at Whitireira Welltech and now Massey, and probably the advanced one.
I think so. Nice. Rachel, do you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Yep, kia ora. I'm Rachel, and I got the accredited learning advisor accreditation, and so I will be aiming for the advanced one in the next year or so. I've been a learning advisor for 4 years, but I've been working in university for 20 years. Yeah.
What work were you doing, Rachel? Teacher training?
I was teaching English for academic purposes, and I was also an academic manager. Yeah. So I redeployed after COVID and have found a new calling. Yes.
Excellent. Yes, no, Rachel was one of our pilot schemes, so she actually has an award already. Diana, kia ora, welcome. We're doing how long you've been a learning advisor and what award you're interested in applying for. Yes, no, maybe not at the moment. Okay, so I mean, you all seem to have intuited, I think, the idea that the award is designed in 2 stages. And one of the reasons that we thought of this is, well, on a personal level, I find it really hard to tell people what it is I do, because I do so many things, but it's quite difficult sometimes to quantify them. And also, in this current climate, I think it's quite useful that we have now come of age as a profession. And I just like the idea that we can showcase what it is we do. And also, if any of you are in slightly unsettled work situations at the moment, this might be a nice way of just gathering together all your strengths in one box. Diana, welcome. Are you there? We just say hi to everybody and tell us where you're from.
Hi everyone, I'm from UCOL in Palmerston North. I've just finished up with a student meeting, so sorry, I just saw ATLAANZ was on and just hopped in. I'm not necessarily thinking of applying for an award, but I was just interested in the accreditation process. So I understand that's being discussed today.
Absolutely.
That's
Yes.
good. So I've been working here for 6 years now.
Nice. Welcome. All right, Cherie, what's on the next slide? That must be you. Go.
Thanks, Debs. Okay, so as the slide shows, the award criteria and the application process, everything that underpins it has been drawn from our own ATLAANZ professional values, and that is linked to the document, which is actually just a quick link there. So basically we have these sets of values and principles, knowledge, skills, attributes, roles and responsibilities, practice, qualification and experience. There's a lot of stuff in that fuller document, and when we share these slides, you'll be able to go into these links and that actual document and have a proper read, which actually gives you a little bit of history about ATLAANZ, which is really quite interesting to look into when you get a chance. Okay, so jumping back into there, as Deb has mentioned, we have 2 award levels that are accredited learning advisors, so more for those early career learning advisors, and the accredited advanced learning advisor for the more experienced learning advisors. Okay, and looking at them just a little bit more closer. So when the working group was putting together these award tiers, we thought very carefully about the kinds of language we use to describe the levels of professionalism across those different areas, differentiating between those early careers and more experience. So for example, the accredited learning advisor level, more for the early careers, it's about proactively seeking to develop your practice and the ways that you go about doing that. In a way that we were able to, and correct me if if you can add to any of this, Debs, we were just thinking about, if we had to think about this in general terms for early career learning advisors, what generally does that consist of? And so these descriptives just help for potential applicants to decide, I need to be going for this, or, oh no, I think I should be going for the more advanced one. And so for the advanced one, it's proactively developing. So it's that continuation of development, learning and development, and the ways that they go about doing that. Okay, so we also have this document available online. So it's a guide for applicants, which basically, and this is just a screenshot of the table of contents of what's contained in this document. So if you want to know more than what I've just shown you about the different 2 levels of accreditation, then there is a slightly larger breakdown in this guide for applicants, and also what can be included in your application portfolio if you are interested in applying. It also then again broadens out onto those principles and values that we have got from that ATLAANZ Foundation, and what supporting evidence might look like, as well as the steps that are involved in the application. And then how the accreditation panel goes about making their decision and the process involved in that. So it's all very kind of like spelt out and clear. But any other questions before we, from anyone about that application process, before we jump over into Rachel, who's going to give us a really lovely demonstration of what her application looked like?
I'd be interested to know to what extent we're in alignment with other jurisdictions in the development of this accreditation award scheme.
I love that, because it's kind of like, I didn't really go there with my kōrero, but part of the working group, which Deb and I were involved in, was that we had Mona Malik, if you're aware, if you know of her, yes. She went out and she did all of the background research, and she compared and contrasted existing accreditation schemes like from multiple countries. She narrowed it down to 2 or 3 of the most relevant that she thought that we could use to base our own accreditation scheme or get some ideas from, in terms of how we could do it our own way in a Aotearoa context specific kind of way. Right, Deb?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah,
and again, that's an interesting thing in the whole learning advisor thing. One of the groups that Mona looked at was the United Kingdom Association of Tutors, because in a lot of the UK universities, their tutors are more in the learning advisor role than being a tutor taking a tutorial. And then the other one that we looked at is a fellow ICAUD member, which is the Association of Learning Developers in the UK. And again, they're not quite learning advisors. So it's been interesting adapting what other people have done to try and frame it around what it is we do.
Yeah, and I think all of those examples just accentuate the fact that it's really important that we develop something that's right for us here in Aotearoa. Also part of that, or everything that Mona did, amazing, comprehensive work and research. Basically, not the last conference, but the conference before that, and the conference before that, the ATLAANZ conferences, both conferences were used to get feedback in sessions with learning advisors as part of kind of like the conference and just data gathering. So there's been a lot of feedback. So this isn't just the working group who's gone off and done some research and then brought all this together. This is the product of learning advisors far and wide across Aotearoa, even Australia sometimes, having some input into how we bring together these levels and how we define what it is that learning advisors do. What is it that makes us this professional body? What are the values that we should be aligning to this accreditation? It's all been informed by learning advisors far and wide. I'm very proud of that fact. So yes. Okay, so over to you, Rachel.
All right, thank you. And yeah, I'd like to say, just having seen sort of earlier versions of this and working through and providing feedback, it's been a huge process. So credit to those of you who sort of created it and got it into what it's looking like today, because I think there's been a lot of thought, a lot of feedback, and a lot of listening to other people as well. So that's great. So like I said before, I applied for the ALA because I've only been in this position for 4 years. But again, it's a strength-based and a really positive experience in terms of thinking about the breadth of our roles and also the interconnectedness of what we do. So I think Karen's going to talk to us about that a bit later on, but just looking at everything we do and unpacking our daily jobs, what we do on the daily basis, and things that perhaps we don't consider as being a formal part of our role, but things that we do, and people we work with, and those connections and relationships. So I think for me, the biggest thing about the application was thinking about how to organize and exploit what you do. How do we capture that evidence? How do we record that? What does it look like? And how do we put it in a format that other people are going to see and understand? Because obviously we all have internal systems and we have internal documents that we work with. So probably one of my technical tips is just to make sure that links work, and that if you're uploading documents, making sure that other people have access to those documents. So that was one of my faults at the beginning, was sort of including links and documents that perhaps couldn't be seen by people outside of AUT. And probably if we have a look and just, you've got access to the whole application, but just that idea of you probably have a lot of the evidence already. Probably you have in your portfolios, you've probably got in your own documents sort of records of observations, you've got feedback from students, you've got feedback from colleagues or lecturers. So a lot of the stuff you have already, and if you don't have it, then it can give you a nice focus for sort of professional development or sort of a plan for what you need to actually make sure that you've got a robust application. So things like observations or identifying potential professional development or training opportunities. So it's sort of a living document that you can sort of see where you're up to and sort of identify where you may need to fill in some gaps, or perhaps look at how you do things and where it might fit. And so some of the evidence can be used for some of the different criterions. So you might have something that you've created that could demonstrate multiple criterion. So I think rather than thinking that you need lots and lots and lots and lots of documents and things, finding something that can illustrate and demonstrate that breadth of your work, and perhaps sort of pulling out areas of something that you've done and thinking about the values or te tiriti or how it might fit with those. And in terms of doing, sorry, Quentin. Yep.
Got a question.
Just quick question. What sort of time frame should we use for this reflection?
That was a good question. So in terms of, I think, in terms of the actual sort of doing the application and filling in the form and making the Padlet, Mark and I were saying it was a good couple of days of the actual making the product. But obviously the reflection you might be doing over a few weeks or maybe over a semester if you're thinking about what it is that you want to show and how you're going to show that and what evidence.
Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't thinking about the time it'll take, as long as it does, but I was thinking more, how far back do we go in terms of our career?
I think a couple of years, I think, was sort of recent and current practice. Is that correct, Debs?
Yes, I think so. I mean, if you did something amazing way back and haven't done it again, then that probably isn't valid. But if you started doing something way back and have continued doing it,
building on it, yeah, okay,
yeah. So the last thing I'll just say is that it was really good doing it with someone. So Mark and I were doing different applications, but it was nice to have another person doing it so we could compare where we thought activities or resources might fit. And like I said, it took a good couple of afternoons, days to sort of create the Padlets, write the personal statement, but it's not really long in the scheme of things. And then really great feedback. So it was really nice to receive feedback from Sherry and the team to sort of identify areas for development. And if I am wanting to apply for the next level, I've got sort of clear goals and clear things that I can work on for myself. So it's really productive and worthwhile. I would recommend it.
I have a quick question for you. So just in the application, there are these 5 areas that you have to provide evidence for. How difficult was it for you, or how easy was it for you to kind of like find the right kinds of evidence to demonstrate your engagement around relationships or your engagement around te tiriti-based practice?
I think there's a lot of things. I think there's institutional. Depending on your institution, I think institutionally there are things that are happening. So we have things that happen within our team and things which happen in the wider community. So we could draw on those internal kind of activities and resources. And then, it was easy, I think. I think it was an easy process. And something that most of those 5 are what we do. So it's sort of, if it's not formalized, we do it. We just have to sort of identify in what areas or what resources or what's a good example of that practice. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right. So do you want me to talk for Mark, or Deb, do you want to take over?
I'll go next, and then you can come back. That works. All right. So like Rachel, I used to paddle it because I hadn't heard of any other funky newfangled things. And I actually ended up flipping mine the other way, so that if Rachel's went across in a row, if that makes sense, mine go down. And interestingly, when I saw the other applicants, I realized, yeah, I actually could have used like one activity and signal it that did maybe several things, where in fact for me, I chose one sort of value and then worked my way down with each sort of thing. And Padlet let me put 4 things in a row, which was quite useful to think about. So and also part of the application is a personal statement. And Rachel, you did your personal statement separately. I actually ended up just banging mine in bits on the end. So I guess what I'm saying is there are lots of different ways of doing it, but it was very interesting seeing what sort of things you use for each. But yes, if I gave a tip, I think I might have cross-credited a little bit more and done one thing and said, look, this actually relates with more than one criterion. And because I've been a learning advisor for 100 years, I went way back just to see how far back I could go. The other thing in terms of time frame, which Rachel answered with Quentin's question, although it wasn't really the question in terms of doing, one of the other parts of the application is getting a supporting statement from colleagues, and so you need to give them a little bit of a heads up too in terms of their busy lives. I think, as also speaking now as a member of the panel sort of awarding these things, Rachel's also mentioned making sure that outside people can access the documents or the resources, but the really compelling stuff actually is student feedback and colleagues' feedback. And I'm conscious at the institution that I'm at, there aren't formalised ways of gathering student feedback other than sort of, cute emails and counting the boxes of chocolates and things. So the more you can find evidence, because it's all very well to say, yay, I think I'm doing something well. But you're right, we are the main focus of this is how we're impacting on student success. So if you can get other people's voices in as well, I think that adds value. But I had a lot of fun doing it. I played around with it quite a lot. If you do use Padlet, I suggest you put things up as PDFs. There's no point just putting up a screenshot of something. That's not at all informative for the accreditation panel. They'd like to see the whole document. But Padlet at some stage will want you to pay money if your uploads get too big. Quentin, have you got a question?
More of an observation. So, Deb, you mentioned that in your institution you don't have a mechanism for getting feedback from students and colleagues. At AUT we do, and I think part of the value of a community of practice like ATLAANZ is that we, rather than any individual or any institution reinventing the wheel, we could share what we do. So, if you talk to Mark, for example, Mark and Rachel, that they will have insight into the practicalities of this. I think it was developed by Lucy, Dr. Lucy McNaught, and it's fantastic. It works, and it's super efficient, and I've used it for promotion applications, really, really helpful. So I think we would, as an institution, would be happy to share the structure, the framework, and the technical aspect. So just a thought.
Brittany, welcome. You came a bit late. You missed the introductions, but if you're listening, take note. Thank you.
I think just to add, possibly, was there some maybe in the future when people have been doing applying and there's a few more examples, we might get some kind of resource bank. So shared resources that people, or shared templates or shared, so hopefully as it progresses, there could be some cross institution sharing of ideas of getting feedback and evaluations.
I like that a lot. One of the organisations, as I say, that I got ideas from was ICALD, was Eldine, the sort of learning and developers in higher education. And the thing that I would really like ATLAANZ to do in the future at some stage, they have got a sort of an expertise directory. So it means if you are interested in maybe working with international students or working with neurodiverse students or working with postgrads or whatever, they've actually gone from this award to say, hey, yeah, here's a link to this person at another institution who can maybe collaborate with you. And I think that would be magical, because yeah, the wealth of resources and information I think we're going to get out of this as a collective is just going to be brilliant. All right, that's me. And to say mine was a Padlet as well. Rachel, do you want to be Mark and share his fancy other format?
Yes, his lovely colourful. Yes. I've just got a few notes from Mark in terms of what he wanted to sort of convey. And like Deb said, but we use Padlet. We were familiar with Padlet, but he used Trello. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with Trello. And you can see on he's also done some amazing colour coding. And so he organised the application by some of the criteria that mapped easily onto his role as learning advisor at AUT, and then divided it into 3 strands. So at AUT, we talk about teaching, research, and academic citizenship. And then so he wove those criteria through those, and he used a colour key for the criteria to make it easier for the panel to see which criteria he was claiming for each activity. So you can see in that first column, you've got the different colours, and then throughout the evidence, he's colour coded what he is demonstrating or what he's showing. Yeah. So where Deb and I had those as our Padlet titles, he had a lovely colour coded scheme. So that made it, was that easy to read, Deb and Sherry? Was that it was a good system?
So long as you made sure to read that first title, Open Me First, where he explains his system, then yeah, it's good. It's good. But if we didn't have that, it would have been a little bit confusing.
Yeah. So probably just, instructions for reading, instructions for how to use whichever tool that you're using would be good. And then he just said also in his eyes, it didn't take too long to do or complete, even with his color coding and using the criteria. And the panel's feedback again was really useful to him in giving him a focus for future development. So he identified greater and greater engagement with Te Reo and Tikanga Māori. So there's a really nice sort of focus. So again, depending what you're applying for, I think that you can get something from, you'll still get feedback and you'll still get ideas to take away and work with in terms of your professional growth. So different ways of doing it, but still acceptable ways of applying. So thank you. That's his comments.
Yeah, I kind of, when you look into these, you don't kind of like realize how much is contained in one card. So, but once you dig in, you can see there's actually a whole lot of attachments and things. So the depth is definitely there in his application. And it's a really, really clever example about how we do one thing, but it has so much crossover into all of the other values that we expect to see evidence for. And so his color coding is just quite a clever way of doing that.
One of the things, and I don't know whether this is the space to talk about it, but I'll say it because it's at the top of my head and I'll forget it otherwise. If possible within your institution, if you can encourage other people to get involved at some stage, I think it would builds on Rachel's comment about working on her application together with Mark. If it can be part of a PD session, or you will have muffins and coffee one morning or something and come together and just do a bit of a show and tell and things like that. If you've got space within your institution, I think that would be a really nice way to do it, because as we found on the panel, you go, oh, I hadn't realized that I also did that as well, or I can see how I would use that. And I think sometimes in your own little space initially, you're not quite sure just how many amazing things you really are doing. All right, Karen, we're going to make you work now.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I suppose I should put my camera on, shouldn't I? So we think that learning advisors are like an onion, because there are so many interesting layers. And rather than us talk about how we might be onions because of all the thousands of things that we do, Cherie has created a Menti link. So I guess if you just hit that link, right, Cherie?
Do you do it, or do you need to put it in the chat? How does it work?
Just hit that link. And so we're going to collaborate together with some ideas about what we do. So hop on, and if you can, hop onto that link and pop some ideas in there about what you do. Oh, how we
I'll just grab the link, just one second,
put it in
please. Yeah, I'm just flicking through. I should have had this ready beforehand.
Not at all. So you're going to put that in the chat, Cherie?
Yep, I'll do it right now.
So this will be a real-time collaboration about some of the things that we do to be onion-like in our role as learning advisors.
I think I have to go into my actual Mentimeter. 1 second.
No, we're good to go.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna get to the live screen so you can see it all take shape.
Okay.
Yeah. I was expecting to see a word cloud, but I'm not quite seeing that.
I think we thought not a word cloud because it just does words.
Oh, right, it does one word. That's right. Sorry. Okay.
So we wanted whole statements. Yes, yes. Expecting to see at least 9 things, good people. Come on. In the guidebook, we put together a whole list of things that we thought might be of value, but I think one of the things that because it's an online portfolio, I would like to see people exploit that as much as they possibly can.
My screen is saying, please wait for the presenter to change slides.
Yes, I put up one and I couldn't do any more, but we're doing all right.
I believe that when we created this, my subscription was full and complete. Since then, the person who looks after the subscription hasn't renewed it. So there is a cap on how many submissions you can make unless you're subscribed. Normally when I do this, people can hit the submit button many, many times, but because this hasn't been upgraded or updated, we might be capped. Sorry.
Okay. Can you make
That's
a
all
screen?
right. We can always pull up the one that we prepared earlier, can't we?
Yes, can we?
Oh, well, I mean the slide that we prepared earlier.
The slide?
Have we not? Yeah, that was on our original one.
Oh, I'll have to go digging for that one.
Okay. If we can't make this work, technology, eh?
It's okay. People can just call things out. Come on, anything else? What have we got?
I'm just going to drag some stuff. I may have hidden that slide. That's all, Karen.
Yes.
Oh,
Or
okay.
removed
Now
it. No.
I've found myself somewhere. Yeah, I thought maybe you did hide it.
Oh, I have to go into my version 1 folder.
Talk amongst yourselves while you're waiting. Is there anything else you're suddenly thinking of? Oh, yes, I could
Got
use
it.
that.
Copy.
Well, feel free to type in the chat too, any thoughts you have in the chat.
Yeah.
Okay, now, there we go.
Yes.
It's
Oh,
there.
there you go. There you go.
Bit of
There you
magic.
go. Well, luckily we did prepare one earlier, right?
We did.
Okay, so these were some of the things that as a group we came up with, and you can see that the depth and breadth is huge, really. And of course, not all of us do all of these things, and some of us do some of these things to a greater or lesser extent. And I guess it depends on our institutions. It depends on our particular role, because there is difference there. But we're pretty busy onions, aren't we? I think.
Yes.
Does anyone have anything any thoughts that they have, or would you like to say anything about this? Is there anything that's missing that you do on that list that might be missing? Feel free to say something or pop in the chat. That we've got, yeah, quite a few things going in here. So we've got community of practice membership, encouraging independent learners, publications, committee working party memberships, mentoring colleagues, organising social events. Woo!
Well,
very nice, Deb.
when I was at that Victoria, we used to have a stone soup lunch in midwinter, for example, and invite our student leaders along. Yeah, very nice.
Lovely.
Yeah,
how lovely. Thesis, dissertation examination. So these are all some of the things that can be included in the application. But what we were trying to highlight here is that there are just so many different ways that we can show what we're doing, and it's completely personal. So we encourage you to think creatively about your role in some of the things that you do. Right, training student leaders.
I have a question for the early career learning advisors. So Rachel, Diana, are you early or advanced?
I'd be early.
Oh, okay, awesome. And Brittany, if you're able to talk, are you early or advanced? Okay, maybe you can let us know in chat if you're there. Oh, middle, I like that. Be difficult, okay. No, just kidding. I guess the question is, and I'm just kind of, this is based on my own experience of coming into the profession. For you, Rachel and Diana, and even Brittany, when you started in your role as learning advisors, were you astounded by how much it incorporates? Like how much of a surprise it was to come into the role and then find out it really is all this? Rachel, do you want to start?
Yes, yeah. And also sort of, I think that, yes, we know that we come in to come and do teaching and working with students and one-to-one. So we know what our core business is, but there's so much more beyond that, what is considered core business. And also in talking to students and the work you do, sort of coming from looking at student needs, talking to lecturers, there's so many different offshoots of all of those that become part of your job as well, if you want to do something well, because it's not just some of the work is like putting plasters on, you know, and then actually realizing that there's bigger things that need to be done at other levels. So yeah, I think it's huge, and we may be doing different things on different days, and yeah.
Well said, well said. And you, Diana?
I came from a secondary teaching background, so there was quite a lot of crossover in terms of workshops. But I do really enjoy being able to work with students more one-to-one. So with teaching, you have a big class and you don't really get that much individual time. So as a learning advisor, I see that you can really have more opportunity to mentor individual students. As for the day-to-day role, yes, there is a lot of variation, particularly being at a regional polytech. I'm part of a student success team, so learning advisors are definitely very much part of that team, and so we get roped into student events and various other things. So, you know, we might be barbecuing sausages one day and then doing a workshop the next.
Oh, that's really cool. I love the way that learning advisors are just integrated into that kind of like workplace practice and culture. That's really cool. And Brittany, feel free to pop in chat your thoughts there, because we've got some thoughts coming through from where did I see it? Karen, who said it took her 5 years to feel comfy in the role. Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, the first year was the only cruiser year for myself. I spent a year kind of like learning the ropes, watching the others do their thing. I took over after, I started taking on lead roles after about 6 months, but I spent a year just kind of cultivating relationships across the tertiary landscape that I'm working within. And then from like year 2 onwards, I was flat tack nonstop. It just was crazy busy.
I think that's something too for sort of beginning learning advisors. Just watching and looking and learning is equally valid. You know, you don't necessarily feel you have to be driving things in the first stages. You're just building your own sort of resources. And we probably need to keep moving. How are we going on slides? Because these good people will need to.
Yeah, I believe we're almost there. Yes, so we've only got a couple more slides, and the last slide's just kōrero. So back to you, Deb.
Is it all right?
Me?
I don't know. This is just all of us saying, yes, please consider applying, because I mean, this award scheme is only going to thrive if people do get engaged. And as I say, I appreciate that it is time to put it together, but you are doing all these amazing things anyway. So I think the more opportunities we can have to showcase them, the better. All right, I will shut up. Cherie, you talk to your slide.
No, that's perfectly said, Debs. I couldn't have said it better. And there is a link there if you would like to check out where that application form sits. And basically you would complete that and you would provide a link to wherever your portfolio is as part of that submission. So it's all pretty straightforward there. And I just do want to tip my hat to Andrea's comment there. What she's seen over the past 2 decades, the role is constantly evolving. Students' needs are very broad, also evolving and holistic with overlaps with everything we do. So absolutely 100% correct. I mean, like, we all know how crazy the learning space has been changing recently. And just when you think it couldn't get any more crazy, AI comes along. So it's fun times to be a learning advisor. All right. So unless there are any other questions, I can end our session. Any questions, anyone? Any pātai? Okay.
Just a question. Oh, just one question. Like, when can people apply? Like, when applications open?
Excellent question, Debs.
We said May, I think, which the idea was to give you people a bit of a chance to come to this, start, putting things together. But we haven't actually got a particular date in May. We'll put out a flyer at some stage, and we'd like to try and make it coincide with breaks as much as possible. The one thing we haven't really thought of is the pressure this is going to put on the accreditation panel, reviewing everybody's wonderful applications. But the other thing we're hoping is that once more people apply and achieve the awards, they can become part of the accreditation panel. And the other thing that I should say, which is very exciting, is the executive committee at the moment, the working party, is engage the services of a design intern from Waikato University, and so they are busy designing the certificate and the awards, so we should have something to really show for it.
Yeah, we're very excited with the progress we're making there. They're going to look amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we'll stick a pin in the calendar and think of something. I mean, does somebody want to give us a date in May that would suit you?
We'll definitely we'll do some comms after this, and we'll make that decision. And for those watching, you will see a flyer come across your email channels with an update on our call for applications. Okay.
And I say, hopefully, if you have attended this session, that you can